First, I want to thank all of you for coming. It shows an open-mindedness that I really appreciate. And we're going to get into chatbots, not really technically. Okay, so it's a non-technical introduction to it. And the important thing to understand is that, when you hear about chatbots, might not be the person you expect to see up here. And it's because I've been practicing for about 20 years now. I just went to my 20th reunion at UCLA Law School. And so the point of that is you don't have to be somebody who's just got out of college, a background in programming to be able to do this stuff. And so what we're going to talk about today is a bit of an outline about how to build a chatbot so that if it's something that you think can help your firm, you might be able to look at the major points of how to execute on that. So first, what is a chatbot? The first thing I want to get rid of is the chat part of it. Okay, it's a bot. A bot it's more universal in what it can do. It can automate both a conversation as well as a task. It's much more useful that way. It's not just about chatting. So there might be some concerns about having a chatbot or a bot, and some of them might be, do they really want to talk to some kind of disembodied bot, and is there any value in it? So the best way is to go and look at data. And the first is that the primary concern of consumers is to reach the desired outcome. They don't necessarily care how they get there, they just want to get that outcome. And this was a study by Ubicend, which is based out of England, and they actually do chatbots. The other runner-ups was ease of experience, speed, as you heard this morning, one of the most important factors. And then, again, speed, instantaneous answers. 69% favored getting the instantaneous answer over having the face-to-face. So what are some examples that are non-legal examples of chatbots right now? One, for example, is a poncho. Now you put in some basic information like where you live, and it'll tell you the weather there, whether or not you should wear a poncho when you go outside. This one is for 1-800-Flowers. They are ahead of the curve. They're trying to anticipate, and they got a chatbot going, so you can actually order some flowers online by answering a few questions. And the difference here between a chatbot and an app is that you have this conversational interface where you go back and forth, and it's asking you questions and filling your order as it goes. This one, Health Tab, is actually pretty innovative in that it's more or less providing advice. You put in a question with some keywords about symptoms, and it'll throw you back some advice about how to deal with that medical ailment. Now, it's not a replacement for a doctor, but it actually helps them along the process. So you might ask, why now? Why are we talking about bots now? Well, as you heard this morning, and it's obvious, mobile is where people live. We're all on our phones. I looked over at the swimming pool when I took a break, and even the people in the pool are on their phones. But messaging apps are now so popular, 4 billion people are using them on an active monthly basis. There's 7.5 billion people on Earth, so it's a sizable portion. This is how it breaks down by different apps. You have about 1 billion plus on Facebook Messenger. WhatsApp is extremely popular, not so much here in the United States, but abroad. 100,000 is the number of chatbots launched on Facebook Messenger from the time that they launched in April 2016 until April 2017. So 100,000 bots were created during that time. So there's a huge interest in this area and what it can do. So now that we know why, let's build a chatbot. Let's go through the steps. The first thing to think about is what is going to be the purpose of this bot if you want to do one for your firm. The first is it an informational bot? It pushes out information. So somebody subscribes to it, kind of like to your email list. Except with a bot, it would provide information about maybe new case developments for clients or new speaking opportunities that you're engaging in the community. TechCrunch, for example, has this bot where you subscribe to it, then it provides you with information and news developments that are going on. Another type of bot, another purpose for a bot, is to complete a task. Take orders like we saw with 1-800-Flowers, or it can draft forms, which might be more useful for us. And this is an example of a utility bot or a task bot. They also have them to fill pizza orders. The next step you would want to think of when building a bot is, what is your bot's home? Where is it going to live? Now, there's a lot of options. There's Google, you have Amazon and Microsoft, as well as many others about where the home is. And so when I mean home, I mean, where are people going to find this bot? Is it going to be on Facebook Messenger? Is it going to be on your website, which it could be? Or it could be on Skype or Slack or many other platforms. I think the question to ask that's better is, where do your clients live? Because you want to reach them ultimately, right? Or your potential clients. So when you think about that, you have to look at the demographic of these different apps that are out there. Like Slack, for example, very heavy business usage, right? So if you're trying to reach potential business clients, you might want to have your chatbot or your bot on Slack. And the same thing with these others. WhatsApp, like I said, very popular overseas. So if you're an immigration attorney, that might be a great idea. So what are the tools that we need to build a chatbot? And this is where I'm going to keep it at a higher level. We're not going to get into, we're not going to be coding today. Now there's the easy way, all right? And some platforms you might want to check out afterwards. And I highly encourage you to. It's not scary. And one thing I said earlier, actually in reference to talking today, is the best way to get into cold water is just to jump in. So it holds for this. Just try it out, really. One is motion.ai. Another is called ChatFuel and ManyChat. There's others, but these are three of the most popular ones that are easy to start out with. Actually, motion.ai just recently got acquired by HubSpot. So they might get incorporated into the marketing and not be available as much for anyone to sign up. But for right now, it's pretty cool. So this also reflects the easy way. So when your user interacts with the bot, it's pretty much one-to-one. And that's why it's easy for you to work with, because you're just working within their system. Here's an example with motion.ai. Like, they make it so easy. You press a button and it creates this pre-templated bot that can schedule appointments for you. Now, how many of us could use help with that? That was, as one of the administrative tasks we saw this morning, save us a ton of time. And these bots, by motion.ai, you can actually embed on your website by using a code. And one other thing is that I'm sure a lot of you have seen those codes that you can embed to have live chat, right? Where people click on that, do they really get to talk to anybody live? No, but with something like this, they could get an automated response. This one is ChatFuel. This is what it looks like. Basically, there's building blocks. So it's kind of like Lego, where you put in the questions you want to ask, and you could format it as a yes or no question, and then you can capture that information and then send them to a next block that's based on their response. This one, ManyChat, it has a little bit of a different twist to it, which is kind of nice. This one has the equivalent of an autoresponder. So if you wanted to set up your bot to be an informational bot where it's pushing out that information, you can make it relevant to what your client's asking about. Like, let's say they contacted you about setting up an estate plan, right? You push out the first message about why it's a great idea to set up an estate plan. Then the second one might be the disasters that have happened to people because they didn't, And it just can cue this out like an autoresponder at various points in time. So then there's the hard way to set up a bot. Now when I say hard way, please don't think it's not a good way. It just means that you might need some assistance instead of doing it directly on your own. So there's a great wealth of developers and consultants that do this kind of work. Upwork, for example, is one where there's freelancers available that focus on chatbots. The hard way might involve API.ai is one of those platforms, or Watson, which I'm sure all of you have heard about, and Amazon Lex, which is the system that is behind Alexa that allows you to code a conversation. And this is the setup of what the hard way looks like. Now, it's much more versatile because your bot is actually constructed on top of a natural language processor. So let me explain that. Motion.ai, excuse me, the API.ai and Watson, they basically process the response that you're getting from a user. The natural language processor breaks it down so the computer can understand it. So that's the first part, NLP. Then once it understands what these words are that are coming at it, it sends those words to the bot. And the bot coding can send a request based on that information to a database and grab information, and then send the information back to the user. And we're here for Clio, so Clio has an open API that it just recently upgraded. And so it is possible to have a bot integrate with Clio's API and draw that information that you have from inside Clio. So then when we go into the hard way, like I said, it's a much more versatile way. And so here, these are what we call intents. And so when the computer hears these words being spoken to it or typed in, it captures the intent, like how long does it take to get divorced, right? There's various ways you can put that together. So an intent represents a mapping between what the user wants and the action that should be taken. So here, you could program in various ways that a user might ask, how long does it take to get divorced? Because people, when they use natural language, they ask that in different ways. And then you have the answer at the bottom. And you could also have various answers on the bottom, which are just different ways of saying it, so it doesn't get old. An entity within, let's say, API.ai is just a category, and it's a way of extracting values from what the user's saying. So an example of that I have here. Down here in highlight, you see yes or no. And that's basically the category. This person is either going to give a yes or no response. Maybe you define for the computer, how might a person say yes or no? And so these are various ways. They could say no, nah, no thank you, and that might be how they say no. So once you've dealt with a platform, you've started putting some answers or questions and both actually into the bot. How do you want it to sound? What is the personality going to be like? Is it going to be a straight talker? Is it going to be snarky? Maybe not for a legal bot. But it's something to think about, right? People want to talk to or get information from not just a bland robot, but they want to have some personality there. Like Pancho, for example, when you ask it about the weather, it's kind of being a little silly and having a sense of humor. And sometimes, when you provide information having a sense of humor, it makes it more palatable. So then the next step is when you think about the personality and setting up with these tools, what is the flow of the conversation going to be? It can either be open-ended, and we're familiar with this from doing depositions and asking questions. They ask some question about how long a divorce takes, or they could say, can I appeal? And how long does it take to appeal? Just any question might be open-ended. And the way you do this in a bot is you have the natural language processor break down the question. In this case, when is the train arriving? Feeds it through to the database and serves up the information. So that might be one way you want to plan it. Is have just, it's open to any question. The next might be, it's closed. You want to direct them and guide them through the process. That might be the way you want to go. And so this might look really familiar if we take out our constitutional law summaries and diagrams, right? Or any of the subjects we study in law school. It looks a lot like this. So then after that, you have to think about where you're going to publish. You have to get this bot out in the world. And so again, there's an easy way and there's a hard way. The easy way is built into the more simple systems like Motion.ai and Chatbot. And it's as simple as literally pressing a button and it'll hook it up to Facebook Messenger, for example, and have it available to the public. The hard way, these are some of the steps. But again, you get to have a more versatile bot available to the public. And these are things that a developer can help you with. So understanding this overview and the steps involved, it's not, from what you've seen, it's not that complicated. It's basically how you might want to put an app together, maybe a mobile app. And so the next step after that is you want to test your bot. You want to see, is anybody going to use this thing? Some ways of finding out are, for example, Meetup. Now you might think, why Meetup? That's for meeting people about interest groups and similar interests. But actually, the very fact that you have interest groups with similar interests, like if you wanted to create a bot about incorporating a business, there might be an entrepreneur group in your state or in your city. And you say, hey, I have this bot that could do this. Do you mind if you or like a couple of your members check it out and see what you think? They might give you some very helpful feedback about where it's missing. Same thing with Facebook groups. Slack is also fantastic for getting business-oriented potential clients to give you feedback. And Craigslist, you can do your focus groups. Just put an ad on Craigslist, tell them you have a chatbot that you want to test out, and pay people to come into the office, in the conference room, play around with it, and tell you what they think. So what might this look like? I'm talking about these steps, but here's a concrete example. You might have the search box where, generally open-ended, how can I help you? Landlord owes me a security deposit, very common thing for consumers. This is how I can help. Get your security deposit back, draft a letter for you, click start now. Then it goes into starting a conversation with this potential client. You could also put in questions of disqualification. So maybe you can ask, even have a potential client conflict check built in, so that if they match up against any opposing party you have, it'll actually dump them out of the system and say thank you, but can't help, right? You can automate that as well. So after you get the information in, it's ported into a database which fills out this form, which the tenants can use, send to their landlord, demanding their security deposit back based on best practices from a form that you've used before, and the dialogue to serve it up to the user with something like this. And then at the bottom, as a bit of an upsell, you can say, hey, if you'd like to have a consult for this, which you charge for, just click on this button and schedule your appointment. And maybe even has them prepay for it. So what other legal services might be automated? You might want to qualify new clients. Or, for example, triage legal issues. Maybe you have some cases that are fairly complicated, and so you want to ask the client questions, go through that whole series that you would normally have in office, and it would take maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours to do. Onboarding new clients, scheduling appointments, client interviews. The beauty of this system, of the bots, is that unlike the scary stuff that you've been hearing in the news and about automating lawyers out of work, in fact, a lot of the challenges that we have as lawyers, we can help to reduce with bots. So all those administrative tasks that they're talking about, to make it easier so that instead of us spending as much time on those things, we can spend much more time lawyering, which is what we want to do, by having bots assisting us. So a bot as an assistant, not as an overlord. So the next step is marketing your bot. And so there's ways of getting it out there that can help the public discover your bot. There's Bot List and Bot Finder, which are two kinds of directories where you just type in a search, a landlord letter, right? And they'll find maybe the bot that I was giving you an example of. Product Hunt is a great way of getting new bots out there. Product Hunt is a way that people discover new apps. Again, Slack and Meetup might be a great way of reaching communities and letting them know about your offering and that it fits their interests. Most importantly, be relevant. And of course, you have your standbys, Twitter and Facebook, including Facebook groups that you can use to push out news about your bot. And then there's Google AdWords. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that for a bot. For your practice, it might be good. If it's working for you, that's great. But initially for a bot, you want to get some initial positive feedback before you really ramp it up. And so AdWords might be a little too expensive to start out with. So Facebook Messenger has this new Discover function where if you go onto it, not only is it your friends that are on there that are automatically populated in Messenger, but there's a Discover tab which can show you some bots you might be interested in, like TechCrunch, for example, is one that comes up. And there's others. Also, if they had an interest in, again, like a landlord legal issue, they might type that in and yours would probably come to the top of the list because there isn't a lot of competition in the legal bot arena right now. It's still an area that is wide open in terms of you being able to use it to help your own practices. So if you want to learn more about bots, here's some areas to check out. Chatbots magazine has a wealth of information. There's many, many, many articles about chatbots and designing them, programming them. Chatbots Life is both a Facebook group as well as a website that has additional information about chatbots and what you can do with them. There's a conference that just recently happened about bots, AI, and virtual assistants. And here's another Facebook group, Bot Academy, founded by Andrew Warner, who has a really great website called mixerd.com and has like these interviews about how to get your business out there. So these are some places you can learn more. And if you want to talk to me, I'd be happy to help you learn more about chatbots. LawDroid1 is where I am on Twitter, and my website is lawdroid.com. Thank you all again, really appreciate it, and it's just a wonderful honor to be here today.